This is the Brewers POSTCAST, your instant game reaction for the Milwaukee Brewers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We had talked about it last night. You can't call it a win streak with 2 in a row, but with 3 wins in a row, your Milwaukee Brewers officially on a win streak with the 6-4 sort of sloppy win, but you take a win any way you can get them over the Chicago White Sox tonight in the south side of Chicago. Good evening once again. My name is Brandon Snyder, your host for the Locked On Brewers Postcast edition right here live on YouTube. You can follow me on Twitter at Brandon_Snide. Again, like always, lots to get into. A short night from Tobias Myers. We'll dive into that a little bit. Rake Bauers coming through in the clutch. And of course, his first name is Jake Bauers, but I had to go with the Rake because a big hit in the 8th inning to kind of break that tie and open the game for this Milwaukee Brewers. A series win, by the way, a 6-4 series win for the Brewers against the White Sox. We'll dive into the player of the game. We'll talk about the turning point and the things you may be talking about as this team gears up to discuss a very, very important series with the Chicago Cubs in town on Friday night. If you are watching live on YouTube, please don't forget to hit that thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, drop a comment below. I'll try to get to as many as we can this evening. A very, very strange, sloppy game tonight for the Milwaukee Brewers. The first inning started kind of similar to what it did the night before. In that first inning, they plated 2 runs. They had a chance to add more. Joey Ortiz with the bases loaded just couldn't come through. William Contreras tonight. Now, there's going to be some debate on the player of the game, I have a feeling, looking ahead to tonight. But William Contreras, a 9-game hitting streak extended for him, an RBI single in that first inning. He finished the game 2 for 3, 2 hits, 2 walks, and he scored a run as well in that first inning. And the Brewers coming into this game, starting pitcher, the name sounds familiar, Shane Smith. He was a farmhand for the Brewers, a Rule 5 draft pick last year. He had not given up more than 4 hits in any starts for the Chicago White Sox coming into the game this evening. The Brewers had 3 of them in the first inning. And how many times have we talked about on this very program when the Brewers are aggressive early and they're able to kind of capitalize with timely hitting? This is a completely different baseball team. And ladies and gentlemen, tonight, that was the case with the early runs given for Tobias Myers. It didn't last long for him, though. He was done after 2 innings pitched, 2 earned runs. The story is pretty simple for Tobias Myers tonight. The control, something he was chasing all night, just not on top of his stuff. But Tyler Alexander came in, and you got to give the bullpen a lot of credit for tonight. We saw Tyler Alexander, we saw Grant Anderson, Nick Mears, Jared Koenig, Abner Uribe, and Trevor Megill securing his 3rd save of the season. A good bounce-back save for Megill tonight in the 6-4 win over the Chicago White Sox after Megill gave that Arenado home run Saturday against the St. Louis Cardinals. Jake Bauers in the 8th inning, breaking a tie. This game, again, sloppy. The White Sox were throwing the ball over the infield. The Brewers, again, loading the bases in that 8th inning without allowing a ball out of the infield, without hitting a ball out of the infield. And Jake Bauers with the 2-run RBI double in the 8th inning. Caleb Durbin also adding on in that inning with a sac fly to right field. So a good win for the Milwaukee Brewers, now improving to a 16-15 record. And look, guys, all the struggles in San Francisco, losing 3 out of 4, closed door meeting, losing 2 out of 3 in St. Louis, having 2 players bench, Caleb Durbin and Sal Frelick in that series, a walk-off home run, as we mentioned, from Megill, and you're a game above 500. And keep in mind, you're just still not healthy. There's some good news. There's some things you're going to be talking about tomorrow that we'll talk about at the end of the show that lead me to feel like this team is just, they're close. They're close as far as health goes, but trending in the right direction and have a chance. I said it last night, they were going to get the win tonight. And I don't want to pat myself on the back, but I feel like I got to pat myself on the back. This is a team, again, now winners of 3 in a row, had some opportunities in San Francisco, had an opportunity in St. Louis, couldn't capitalize on a few of those games, but they are finding ways to win against a team that they should beat. Lots of reaction pouring in for the folks over on the YouTube. Christian dropping in a comment on the YouTube chat. Bullpen always keeps me on my toes. Yeah. Yes, it has. Yes, I will agree with that. Abner Uribe, we've seen him be lights out tonight. A bit of a struggle. I wouldn't say a struggle, just a little bit of some hiccups. Jared Koenig was pretty good, but I think that I think overall it is a unit that is going to see more probably ups and downs as opposed to the consistency we saw last year, especially when you got to come in and essentially play a bullpen game because Tobias Myers only lasted 2 innings. Nate over on YouTube, we need a third baseman. I disagree with you, Nate. Thank you for the YouTube comment, and I appreciate you tuning in. I think Caleb Durbin is completely fine at third base. I think that's a guy that I am completely content with over at third base. DMH on YouTube, Jake Bauers has been so darn inconsistent, but man, has he stepped up clutch in his Brewers career. Rake Bauers in all capital letters. You are absolutely right, DMH. And without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's get in to the player of the game.
This is the Locked On Player of the Game.
And we have a lot of players being mentioned in the player of the game category over there on YouTube. The Nick with the player of the game, William Contreras. I don't think you can go wrong with William Contreras. Nick, again, saying Bauers would be his second choice for player of the game. And those are the two that I had fallen into my category for player of the game. Talked about William Contreras, 9-game hitting streak extended, the RBI single in the first inning. He scored in the first inning, threw a guy out at second base in the 7th inning when the White Sox were trying to get a guy in scoring position with the game tied. But I'm going to go with Jake Bauers. And I think that's, kind of speaks for itself. The tie-breaking RBI double in the 8th inning with the bases loaded, scored 2 runs. They scored 3 runs total in that 8th inning, and kind of obviously was the difference in this matchup for the game tonight. But Jake Bauers, another one of those guys where I don't want to say you just plug and play. Obviously he's had his struggles this year. We've seen, multiple players have struggles. That Vinny Capra is a name that's being discussed in the YouTube chat currently, but Jake Bauers just consistently comes in and finds himself in clutch situations and continues going back off of last year to do the things that he needs to do to put this team in a position to get a 6-4 win over the Chicago White Sox. Again, a win on the road. And I think at this point, if you're a Milwaukee Brewers fan, any win on the road, I don't care who you're playing, is pivotal. They improved to now 7-11 on the road. We had talked about they have got to even up that record going on the road. And if you're going to be a playoff team, it's going to have to be something that, improves over the course of the season. This was a perfect series. After we talked about the Brewers win against the St. Louis Cardinals on Sunday, we had looked at this 3-game series against the Chicago White Sox. There was fear amongst some Brewers fans, myself included. You had a really bad road trip. It continued in Chicago. You had an opportunity, this is before the series, to take at least 2 out of 3. Now you need to go get 3 out of 3. But you were worried that maybe this was a Brewers team that was at the end of the road trip. Maybe they were going to overlook the White Sox. Maybe they were going to come in flat offensively. They were looking at the Cubs matchup on Friday night, returning home from the season-long 10-day road trip. And maybe this was a kind of a trap per se for a series with the Chicago White Sox, but it has not been that. This Brewers team has been awesome in each one of these games. A little bit sloppy here and there, but 6-4 win on the road, back end of this road trip, I think we'll take that all day long. So Jake Bauers gets my player of the game only because there's a 3-3 tie going into the 8th inning. Really wasn't sure where this game was going. The Brewers had opportunities early in the game. They didn't capitalize. Tobias Myers struggling a little bit. So it allowed the White Sox back into this one. So it was one of those weird games where it felt going into that 8th inning, it could have went either direction for the Milwaukee Brewers, but nonetheless, Jake Bauers coming through in the clutch for this Milwaukee Brewers. And that's also the turning point of the game because look, 3-3 tie, a lot of things can happen in a tie ball game on the road at the end of a really, really long road trip. You're exhausting your bullpen. Like I mentioned, a handful of different pitchers. Tobias Myers only throwing just short of 50 total pitches at 49, 2 innings pitched. I thought, I thought that was your turning point. Jake Bauers in the 8th inning, and that was your turning point or excuse me, and that was your player of the game. James over on YouTube. All our struggles can be found in the first by Sunday night. Appreciate your comment there. And Drum, not to stay off topic, but I feel like last year's Brewers was kind of like the 2018 Brewers, but without the clutch factor. Totally different teams. I can see where you feel that way, but that 2018 Brewers team was about as loaded as maybe they ever have been outside of going to the World Series back in '82. But that is a good to comparison to those two teams. I think you could definitely make the case. And Rudy's over on YouTube. I would give it to Pat Murphy, player of the game. Interesting. Pat Murphy is Rudy's player of the game. Appreciate each and every one of your comments. Again, if you're over on YouTube, please feel free to drop a thumbs up. Make sure you follow us and drop a comment. We'll try to get to them as the show goes on. A lot more to get to yet. We're going to talk about a series win, a look ahead to game 3, something you're going to be talking about possibly tomorrow. Some good news on the injury front for this Milwaukee Brewers. We'll get into all that coming up after this. All right, guys, our show is brought to you by Monarch Money and Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios. You looking for a snack that's both nutritious and delicious? Crack into a good source of protein, and with that, you can do it with Wonderful Pistachios, one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller for longer. Personally, for me, this is a wonderful snack on the go. I have 5 children at home, if you guys have heard before, in between baseball practice, in between volleyball practice, being able to grab a snack that's healthy, it's quick, it's easy, it's good for you, keeps the kids energized and keeps them going. Wonderful Pistachios is our go-to in our house. Get snacking and get cracking with a snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. Our show is also brought to you by Monarch Money. You ever check your bank account and you're like me and you wonder, where did all your money go? Between dining out, online shopping, kids, sports, entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control of your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, your investments, and spending all in one place. So you just stop managing your money and start building wealth. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off of your first year. Incredible deal right there. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without stress. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for you 50% off of your first year. All right, the Milwaukee Brewers getting a very, very much needed win on the road today over the Chicago White Sox. This one by a final score of 6-4. Trevor Megill looking like the old Trevor Megill we've become accustomed to over the last year. He gets the save. Jake Bauers with a big 8th inning 2-run RBI double. And I mentioned his name before, but William Contreras, man, for this Milwaukee Brewers team, starting to look like the guy that won the Silver Slugger last year, going to right field, taking his walks. 2 for 3 tonight, 2 hits and 2 walks for Wild Bill. Good things for the Milwaukee Brewers on the road against the Chicago White Sox. Again, with the win tonight, improving to 16-15 on the season. And Nick, despite the win over on YouTube, saying Chourio and Yelich are so frustrating to start this season. No real consistent production. It wasn't a very, very interesting night for this Milwaukee Brewers team. So outside of Christian Yelich and Jackson Chourio, everybody else on this Milwaukee Brewers team got on base. So those are your only two. Again, a more of a traditional lineup tonight. We didn't mention at the beginning of the show, but Terrain was pulled from the game. It was just an illness for Bryce Terrain. So hopefully he is good to go starting tomorrow, if not Friday, against the Cubs. And Isaac Collins getting the start in there at second base for the Milwaukee Brewers tonight. 1 for 1. You know, again, he's a guy. a Murph ball type player. It's going to plug and play and be productive. And that's exactly what you saw tonight from Collins. But hopefully that's something to monitor with Bryce Terrain going forward. But I don't necessarily think I am worried too much about Yelich and Chourio just yet. I feel like, Nick, to your point, where there's no real consistent production, I feel like that's the entire Brewers team, quite frankly. It's an up and down, up and down, up and down. Now, the last 3 games offensively, they've scored 7-7, and then they score 6 tonight in the 6-4 win over the White Sox. But overall, Nick, I feel like this has kind of been the story of this Brewers team, a very up and down start to the year. And it's not necessarily something I'd be raising a red flag personally with, yet. I think Yelich and certainly Chourio are just too good of ball players to necessarily be concerned with. And a lot of these times too, the start of the year is always tricky. You either get really hot and then you kind of cool down, or you start off kind of cold-ish and kind of work your way as the weather tends to warm up. So I think those two will be completely fine. Let's get to a few more of your comments over on YouTube. And again, if you guys are over on YouTube, hit that thumbs up, hit that subscribe button. Remember, you can get all of our content wherever you get podcasts. You can get all of the content right here on YouTube. Chuck Freeman does a fantastic job with the Locked On Brewers daily podcast. You can still tune in to him and Indefinite Chicken. We need to replace Capra with Andrew Monasterio. He's so inconsistent. It has been talked about prior to the game tonight. Manager Pat Murphy, it had been a struggle with Capra at the plate. That is an option, but again, I don't know if that necessarily is solving the issues for the consistency for this Milwaukee Brewers team going forward. The guys that we had mentioned, Jackson Chourio, Christian Yelich, Rhys Hoskins, those guys got to continue to step up. Rhys Hoskins has been better as of late. William Contreras seems to be getting better. Bryce Terrain, who had started the year really, really good, has kind of slowed off a little bit. Obviously, tonight he was pulled from the game prior to the game starting due to the illness. So something to monitor with him. And Dan over on YouTube. Dan is a fantastic YouTube commenter, and this goes even during a live show and after a live show. Shout out to you, Dan. I appreciate you and your comments and your loyalty to the Locked On Brewers YouTube channel. He says, Durbin just hasn't learned his lesson, picked off once again. Yeah, it's the first thing, Dan, that I thought of when he got picked off. And I don't even know, he was leaning to second base. He was on first base. I don't know what you're doing. I don't know if I don't want to say he hasn't learned his lessons, because I feel like Durbin, after he was benched, he responded well, right? That Sunday game against the Cardinals, he had a big RBI single in that game. And I felt like, okay, maybe he turned the corner a little bit, had a good game on Tuesday night in game 1 against the Chicago White Sox. But you're right. I mean, this is another one of those, instances where it's like, man, you were just pulled out of a game. It's been a roller coaster for him to start the year, right? I mean, couple people in here saying we need a third baseman. I still believe in Caleb Durbin. I believe he is everything a ball player that Pat Murphy wants wrapped up in one. And I've said that, and I'll say it again. He does have to learn his lessons tonight. Another pickoff on the base path. And I don't know if that's something that going forward is going to hinder, him on the base, because he's a speed guy. Is he going to be hesitant on the bases? That's something to kind of monitor. But again, it wasn't something that it was a shining moment for Caleb Durbin, the youngster. He was 1 for 3 tonight at the plate, though. So you got to give him a little bit of credit, but I can see where the frustrations are with that. And that's exactly what Nate is saying. He goes, that's what I'm saying. He's young and we need a vet utility player. I just don't think at this point in the year, where you are, I think that would have been something they should have done in the offseason. Maybe it's something they'll address at the trade deadline, but I think what you got right now is what manager Pat Murphy is going to roll with for now. Now, things can change, injuries can happen, trades can happen, but as it stands right now, I think this is kind of the team that we're going to have going forward. Reverse 24 over on YouTube. Again, thank you for all of your comments. He says, overall, the team base running hasn't been as consistently good as it was last year. More pickoffs, getting thrown out, going to third base. It just hasn't been the excellence we've expected on the bases. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And again, that's something that I think Pat Murphy has talked about. The players have talked about. Ricky Weeks has talked about. It's combining good pitching, good hitting, good defense, smart base running. And that's a thing that we have talked about with this Brewers team, is getting off to those good starts It starts with all of those things. It starts with that, being aggressive, taking your pitches early in counts in the beginning of the game. They did it again tonight against Shane Smith. They, chased him with 24 pitches in the first inning and took a 2-0 lead going into the bottom of the first inning. And Tobias Myers, as we talked about, didn't last long, but that plays into what Reverse is saying. It's got to be better. It's got to be more efficient. And going forward, it's something to definitely keep your eye on. All right, before we wrap up the show, I did want to talk about the thing that you may be talking about tomorrow.
This is what you'll be talking about.
As I talked about it to begin the show, officially a winning streak for this Milwaukee Brewers team. It's been a little bit since we've been on a winning streak. I'm not saying the Brewers are back. I'm not saying, all is well and it's sunshine and rainbows and everything's okay. 3 wins in a row, a really bad start to the road trip in San Francisco. You went next to St. Louis and had really bad back-to-back games, a game you should have at least been into extra innings on that Saturday afternoon game when they Nolan Arenado walked him off. But you responded well. This team responded well in Game 3 against the Cardinals, getting the win. They responded well on the back end of a very, very long road trip with back-to-back wins against the Chicago White Sox. And right now, they are primed, because I think they're going to get the win tomorrow over this Chicago White Sox team. Again, a team that continues to struggle. The White Sox now 7-23 on the year. They beat the White Sox tomorrow. And this is something you'll be waking up, you'll talk about because it's an early game. That's a 4-game win streak going into one of the biggest, maybe the biggest early series of the year against the Chicago Cubs, who, by the way, lost tonight in Pittsburgh by a final score of 4-3. So again, you can get that win tomorrow, and I think they have a really good chance at doing it. You're going to have a good opportunity going into that Cubs series with a little bit of spark, a little bit of momentum, and you're doing all of this while being on the road. Again, the White Sox aren't going to go anywhere. The White Sox aren't a great team. Completely understand all of that. But these are the things that you should do. If you're a good team, if you want to take that to, take this team to the next level and get into the playoffs and move on in the playoffs, these are the things you're supposed to do. You're supposed to get these wins. You're supposed to get these wins. You're supposed to dominate these teams. And that's what we're seeing. So good vibes, good energy going back. Oh, and to add to that good energy, and I'm going to wrap up the show here shortly, Brandon Woodruff completing a rehab assignment, 5 2/3 innings, only allowing 3 hits, no runs, 1 walk, and 3 strikeouts. He will make one more start. After that, it's labeled as TBD. I'm going to read between the lines on that TBD and say if that rehab assignment goes well, I believe it's going to be in Nashville. I would imagine Brandon Woodruff is back in this starting rotation, probably in the middle part of May. And that's when we can start, getting a little bit, discussing this starting rotation, getting some of those guys back and getting those arms back to being healthy. And that's what I think this team needs more than ever. We need consistency at the plate. Reverse 24 talked about it. Nate talked about it. Nick talked about it. You got to be smart on the bases. You got to be able to be consistent at the plate. And I think we're right there at, if we can get it tomorrow and you go into that Cubs series, and boy, I would love to go into that Cubs series with a 4-game win streak with the Cubbies coming to town. The good things are happening. It feels like for this Brewers team, and especially now when you look at Brandon Woodruff, possibly on his way sooner rather than later. And oh, by the way, I mentioned the Cubs. The Reds also lose tonight. So both of the teams in front of the Milwaukee Brewers in the NL Central, both of those teams lose. So real quick before we go, Nate, love the post-game show. I hope you stick around for the season. Thank you so much, Nate. I really do appreciate that, man. I really, really, really appreciate that. Unfortunately, I know maybe not everybody likes me, but I'm not going to go anywhere. I appreciate you and your comments and Nick as well. Great show, Brandon. Are we going to get Chuck and you crossover? I think we can do that. Me and Chuck are good friends, and you still can listen to Chuck on the Milwaukee Brewers daily podcast here on the Locked On YouTube channel, as well as wherever you get podcasts in reverse. Thanks for the post-game, Brandon. Great to hang out with a few people talking Brewers baseball. You can follow me on Twitter at Brandon_Snide. I'm a huge Wisconsin sports fan, as you can't tell if you're watching live on YouTube, surrounding my background with the Packers and the Bucks and the Brewers and the Badgers. So appreciate chopping it up, especially after a Milwaukee Brewers 6-4 win over the Chicago White Sox in Game 2 of that 3-game series. They'll look to go for the sweep tomorrow. An early pitch, a 1:10 pitch between the Brewers and the White Sox. And again, thank you for making Locked On Brewers your first and last listen each and every day. And don't not forget, wherever you get podcasts, Apple, Google, Spotify, all the good stuff. You can listen to our podcast. You can go back and hit that play, hit that subscribe button, hit the thumbs up, drop a comment, drop a review. And again, if you're watching here on YouTube, you're listening on YouTube, do not forget to hit that subscribe button, toss a thumbs up, drop a comment. We'll get to all those comments as the season goes on for your Milwaukee Brewers. Chuck Freeman will have a Locked On Brewers daily edition for you tomorrow, and I will talk to you soon. As always, go Brewers.